I'm Lisa Soames-Peck from Spellbound Miniatures. Welcome to our YouTube channel and chapter 4 in our Book Nook series. Today we're going to be focusing on building the Book Nook. We've done all the decoration, so we've got the exciting part now where it will come together very quickly. And you'll notice if you've watched any of my other videos, I often use a magnetic gluing jig. This is my homemade one, and there's a tutorial in the tech tutorial playlist of what exactly I used to create this. So you can do that yourself, and it's a little bit cheaper than buying a regular made gluing jig off the shelf. So the first thing to note, and it happens with a lot of materials, is that you get some warping when you've used glue or paint. They naturally sort of curve, and I don't know if you can see quite the extent of this warping, but when I put it down on the bench, the corners lift up. So when I'm going to glue my floor on, if I did it this way up, so we put the floor down and then we put the wall there, you can probably see the curve better now. That the front, where if I line up the front edges, there's either going to be a gap here or this doesn't line up straight at the back. So I could glue it this way up and try and bend that wall out and hold it with magnets while it dries, but I prefer to put it down flat and push it down with weights, the whole of this wall, and make that flat. Then it's much easier to bring the floor up to the wall and glue it on there. And if you remember, we left a gap there, the thickness of the wall plus the stones. So have a play around, and this flooring one hasn't warped at all, so I know that's nice and flat, so it's easier to do that way. If you had less warping here, you could do it that way. It's up to you. So I suggest play around first and see which way works the best for you. And for this, I'm going to use regular Gorilla wood glue, and because we want the glue on the bottom edge of the wall, I'm going to put that on first and then put this down. I could just aim the glue along that gap also and bring it up, but because I use a Teflon sheet, it doesn't matter if glue gets on this, and wood glue you can scrape off afterwards anyway. So we'll just pop that open, and I'm going to glue all the way along this edge. And then put that down, and I've got, you'll have seen them before, some pretty heavy weights. These are from my jewellery work that I do, so they're steel and they've got really nice straight edges. So I'm going to line them up with the corners, sort of the back edge and the side edge here. So not only do they weigh the wall down, they provide a really nice 90-degree angle there to support the floor as it's glued up. And I'll do the same on this end. And then I've got these magnets, which are neodymium, I never can say the word, neodymium magnets. Got these off Amazon, they're very strong. So I'm going to use those to hold the floor up. And they work through chipboard. That's how strong they are. They'll work through the chipboard and attract onto these stainless steel bench blocks. You can also use 1, 2, 3 blocks. They're like engineered blocks as well. So we just need to make sure we line up the front of the floor with the front of the wall. And then we put our magnets at the back, and you hear them click into place. And then you can kind of push the bench block or whatever you've got on this side and the magnet on the other side, and they'll create a lovely right angle. And then get more magnets. These are slightly different shape, it doesn't matter. and again push them onto the bottom, and they'll make everything square. And then you can turn it around and check that you're happy where it's lined up at the front and the back, and it's nice and perpendicular. And give it a good push to make sure that the floor is stuck well and straight onto the bottom of the wall. And then we're just got to do the patient bit of leaving this to dry really well first, and then we'll move on to the other walls. Okay, give that 20 or 30 minutes or so, and then I'm going to glue in my it's effectively my back wall, but it's not going at the back. This is going midways because I'm backlighting this project. So if you're doing the back wall, you could now put this at the back. And if you have done this version with the stones, you'll know there's a natural line that we've created that this wall fits up to and makes it easy to locate in the project. So I'm going to put, again, glue on the bottom of this one and that edge. So it will fit onto the side wall and onto the bottom. And use wood glue again for this. And then make sure you get the right side wall to put the glue on. Okay. So gently put that in place. Get some paper towel to mop up any excess glue, although it will dry clear. And we want to make sure that we push it down as much as we can that way so that the tops are level. And if there's any sort of bend, we've got this bit behind to push in to push this wall up onto those stones. And then I've got another. It doesn't matter, you don't have to have these steel bench blocks. You could have anything that weighs just enough to bend the chipboard and hold it there, secure it there. This one wants to move away a little bit, so check if you've got any gaps anywhere. If you need to, use some masking tape as well, and trusty cocktail stick to wipe any excess glue that you can't get a kitchen towel into. Just take your masking tape and be careful on your painted surfaces. So I'm probably going to do it on the other side just in case it pulls some off when it dries. This is very heavy now with all these weights on there. Just check. And then it's at the right angle. And tape that too. It's a little bit fiddly. You're trying to deal with lots of angles and edges at the same time, but you've got enough time because the wood glue takes a while to go off. The hardest thing is getting under this metal sheet to turn it around with all the weights on. I'm not entirely happy that that bottom wall is touching the whole of the stone wall. I can see a little bit of a gap. It's great on the floor. So what I might do is use another piece of chipboard under here. That's better. It's just lifted up the bottom of the wall to meet this wall. And I think that's good. So keep checking. You might have to babysit this one a little if you haven't got enough magnets and weights, and just until all the surfaces grab. And as I said, just be wary of using masking tape on your painted surfaces. It does like to take it off sometimes. So I think that's okay. I'm going to leave that now and we'll come back again in another half an hour. Okay, so that's dried nicely. We've got two sides and a floor. And it's really up to you which you do next. You could put the ceiling on, all this wall. My ceiling's quite bowed. Don't know if you can see that, it's quite bowed. So it would probably, if I did that, and this one's a little bit bowed here as well, I could weigh this one down. Probably makes sense to do that, and then I can push this in, I don't know if you can see that, and take up that gap. So that would work, or I could put this one flat on the bench, straighten that out, and then put this whole piece on top, which feels a little bit more precarious. So I think I'm going to go for putting this on the bench. I need to put some weights on this edge and that edge to make that flat, and then that gives me a straight edge to glue the wall or the ceiling up to and press against and use the magnets. And make sure that this wall is perpendicular too. What I could do, sort of one either side, but I want this one to be weighed down there. And then find the front edge, we'll press that along, and then I'll use the magnets to bring that side in there. So I'm going to put my glue all the way down this edge because I think now I've got those in place, I don't want to move them. So we drew the pencil line, if you remember, so just put the glue inside the pencil line. Make sure you've got it the right way round, so we've got the gap at the back. Line up the front edge and then bring it in. And then we need to push that bowed edge out. Yours might bow the other way, so you do what you need to for your project. And get our magnets, and whilst we're holding this, there we go, you can hear that, and it just clamps onto this steel block. Push this down that way to make sure it's all the way along the edge, and have a check at the back as well to make sure the back edge is lined up. Could do with a turntable here. Okay, so that's lifted a bit. So on one edge I didn't do was this edge here. So I'll quickly take that off again. That's the good thing about the wood glue, is I need to glue this top edge, but the wood glue's still wet. If I'd used tacky glue, that would have gone off by now. There we go. Start again. Might as well line it up with that glue line because that's where it's going to bleed out. So put our weights on. Line up the ceiling. And then get the magnets. And that's better. If it had dried, I could have just run a bead of super glue along there and it probably would have stuck the wall the same, but that's okay. We've managed to rescue that. And just put some magnets wherever you think you need them to really hold and push this ceiling or the wall, whichever way around you're doing it, or the back wall or the side wall. And that's great. And I will attempt to spin it around again and check that back wall. Hardest thing is getting the magnets apart. I think that's good. So again, we'll leave that to dry and come back again in a bit. Okay, so we now have the floor, the ceiling, the wall and the faux back wall. The last bit for this stage is the remaining side wall, if you've done it in this order. This one isn't quite as warped as that one was, and the side wall fits inside of the floor and ceiling walls, and it might take a little bit of just gentle persuasion to get that in there, and we're going to have glue all over the place. So you need to decide which is the best way to which orientation to put this wall on when you glue it. I think for me there is a slight little bit of warping, but if I glue it this way up and then I'm going to turn it that way up and put some weights on it once it's on the bench in here, pushing down on these corners, that's probably easier than if I put this on the bench and weigh these corners down and then try and put that on in the right place where I can't see it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. There's going to be glue everywhere. The one thing I need to remember is to glue this wall from inside. And then the side wall needs the glue on the top and the bottom because it fits inside of there. So which way do I want it when I glue it? Do I want it that way, I think? And then make sure you've got your wall the white way round with that going towards the back. So we'll put the glue on the top and bottom. Okay, this is where it's going to get messy. I think I'm going to start and line up this far bottom corner down here, push this into and up to the ceiling, as best I can and then bring it in. And I could do with something for leverage. This tool might help. Just to pop the bottom open while I slide it in. And that bit came out again. Okay. Wipe the glue off my tool first. Now, let's line up this edge first. Let's come out at the back. This is just going to be one of those, the fiddliest bit, I think. You just take your time and work your way around. And then when you have got something lined up, masking tape it. Good to start with the corners. And then turn it up the other way and do these corners at the back. And then, I don't know if you can see, there's a natural bit of bowing happening there. So I want to make sure it's lined up along there and pushed in at the same time. And all you need to make sure is when it's dry is just be careful taking your masking tape off. Do it slowly and kind of pull it back on itself, rather than up and away, so it doesn't take any of the layers of the chipboard off. So that's looking pretty okay. So do this end. And then, what's the easiest way to show you that? I don't know if you can see the side of this back wall. There is some daylight showing through there because this wall is bowing away from it. So what I will do is this is why I want to turn it on that side and put some weight on here, and that will just bring that wall in to touch the side of that, and all the glue will make contact then. So that's what I'm going to do, turn it that way up and then carefully balance my weights, and then you just see all the daylight disappear so you know when you've got it. Fab. So we'll let that set up and then we'll come back again tomorrow. I'm going to leave this for 24 hours now, so it's all nice and secure so that when we start moving it around it doesn't suddenly start to pull apart. Okay, so we're back the next day. Well, a couple of days actually. I needed to wait for some chipboard to be delivered. This has set up nice and strong, and I don't know if you've done the same faux back wall as me, or if you've done a regular back wall, but we need to think about what we're going to do now to enclose this, if you want to enclose it and if you want to put lights in like I'm going to do. If you had the regular back wall, that would just be in there now. You could put any other window wall in that you want, but what I actually want to do once I've put the lights in is be able to access it to turn the battery pack on and off and swap out the lights if I need to. So I'm going to take the same measurement for the back wall, and what I've done is cut another rectangle out of it to effectively create a door and a door frame. And then I just slightly sanded this bit down because it is a bit tight otherwise, so you just sand the edges lightly just to give it enough room to maneuver in and out. And then if this was the door, you can imagine you need to stop it opening, or you need something for it to close on, or so it doesn't go through, because it's going to be outwards opening. So we need to create a sort of door stop here. And you could do this in craft board. I'm doing this in chipboard because I've got it to hand. So it's the same height, and then I just make sure that it overlaps the door frame enough so that when the door closes onto it, it stops it. And I've also, if you can see, just cut out, I don't know if you'll be able to see that bit. Ooh, it didn't like that. There we go. A little recess at the top and the bottom, and you could do this or you don't have to do this, it's optional, so that I drew a line where I knew the frame stopped, and at the top and the bottom, and I've got some magnets just from a craft store, and you can cut it with scissors, so it's not metal, it's like a plastic magnet. And so the reason that I've cut that out is so that I can put the magnet strip in there and it lies flush with the top of this surface. And then I've done the same for the underneath of the door, cut out the recesses again. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, so that if the door is hinged on this side and the magnets are there, when the door closes it will stick onto the magnets that are on the recessed part of the door frame, like so. So I've done that all before I build it, because it's a lot easier to do that when you're flat on the bench. So I'll just go over it again. We've got the back piece, and we've cut out, using the Cricut maker, just sliced a rectangle out, and you could do whatever size or shape door you like, and just slightly sanded the edges down to make it slightly smaller. I've cut another strip of chipboard that will fit inside. I drew a line so I knew exactly where to cut out for the magnets, and then I just took my knife and cut through the first couple of layers and then just peeled them out of there to make that recess, and then the magnets will sit in there. Then I knew then that if I matched the door up to it, that's exactly where I needed to cut the magnets on the door so that they match up and it keeps the door closed. So that's that part. You could just leave the back open if you want to, but I'd like to close it so that when it's on the shelf you won't have light spilling out from behind it. In some instances you might like the light spilling out from behind it, so that's up to you. And then I've got the same type of hinges that I always use, and this time, because the door's opening out, we want to make sure that that barrel is on the outside and then the door will stick, we'll just glue that on, and then it will fold open as much as we need it to. If the barrel was on the inside, we'd have a nasty gap there for sort of the width of the barrel. I don't know if I can show that to you. If we put the barrel there, we'd then have a great big gap down that side of the hinge. So we're going to surface mount this hinge half onto the door and half onto the frame. And I just glue those on with super glue. And I'm not too worried about this hinge being visible. It's at the back of the project and you're never going to see it unless you're turning it round to put the lights on. So I'm going to glue this all up, put the magnets in to this strip. The magnets are self-adhesive. They have a backing that you can remove, but I'm also going to glue them in anyway because the chipboard, it's a little bit fibrous, and so I can imagine that just the adhesive on these over time might pull off that, so I'm going to super glue those in as well, or maybe use tacky glue. Sometimes super glue produces heat, and heat can actually demagnetize some things, so maybe best to use a normal tacky glue for that and let it set up overnight. So I'm going to do that, and then the similar for the front. If you wanted to create a frame effect on the front, you could take the same piece that we've done there and you can inset that, or you could cut it slightly larger so that it fits over the outside. That's up to you. And put perspex behind it, or again you could hinge this if you wanted to have access to it, or you could leave it open. So I've got some decorating and some finishing touches I want to do in here anyway, so I will not be doing that in this video, but it's just something to bear in mind when you've finished your project, exactly how you'd like to finish this edge off, and I think a frame would look very neat. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go away and glue my back door and door frame, and I will decorate the inside of this first. I'm probably going to paint it all white so that it reflects the most amount of my white light through the window. Okay, so I've now glued that all together. We have a working door with some magnets to hold it. So you can see I literally just glued those hinges and they're strong enough to hold themselves. I use super glue. The catch, or the handle, is just, I had this in my jewellery stash. This is the shape of a cat. And I did a kind of staple effect. So I took a head pin and bent it over like a staple, and then drilled 2 holes and put it through, and then bent them over, and then I will cover that. And you can see I've painted the inside white, so that will reflect the light into the back of the box. And then that's the back there. I've just painted the edges white. I didn't really need to bother with that one, I don't think. And then that will sit in there. It's just big enough, or just small enough, to fit inside this shape. That wall will need pulling out slightly when I glue it. It's just bowed in a little bit. But I'm not going to do that until I've done the lighting, and then that will fit in there like that. So that's that for today. I'm going to carry on now, and I left the aging of the inside of the box until I'd glued it, because I knew it was going to be pretty dark in there and I didn't want to over darken some of the elements. So now that I've got it all together, you can just about see the ceiling there, the beamed ceiling, and the slate floor, and then the stone walls. I'm going to put some lights in there and age it according to the lighting. So I will put probably sort of in the corners to make it look like dirt, dust, and some stains from over the years. Although this isn't sort of a ruined medieval castle that we're used to looking at nowadays. This was at the time that it was built, so it's not too old, so it's not going to look too shabby. So I'm going to do some aging and staining, and then we are on to the exciting interior design elements. I'm going to print and cut a tapestry to hang on the wall, and we've also got some furniture that's going in here. This is a scribe's room, so there's going to be a scribe's desk, which I'm in the middle of prototyping, and then this chair, which this is the first prototype, and I'm really happy with how that's looking. That's coming up in a few weeks' time. I want to carry on with this for a bit. We've refined that file now. There's just a few elements to go on somewhere. I've got another bit for the front there, but I'm happy with that. So that will be coming up soon, as well as a desk, and they're going to sit inside here. So I hope you're joining in. I hope you've had fun. You'll see some photograph updates on Instagram and Facebook, so do follow me there. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you soon.